I don't know if you heard, in terms of the NHS, a fantastic interview that Mike Graham did on Breakfast with the head of the Royal College of Nurses, where she was completely defending not hiring more nurses and hiring more diversity officers, because obviously, apparently, everyone in the NHS is just a horrible bigot, and they need to have diversity officers to stop them being bigoted. Who knew? Who knew that was the issue among the angels? But there we are. Sam Armstrong is here. He's a commentator and is joining us all this morning. Amazingly so, since his delayed flight got him in at 3:30. All credit.
Half five.
5:30. Do you get much sleep on a Ryanair flight?
Well, look, I have a picture which I might put out later, which shows me getting a little bit in the most contorted position ever assembled. But it wasn't particularly.
Was it
pleasant.
fun? On the scale of 0 to 100, how much fun was being on a flight back from holiday at 5 in the morning?
Well, it's when Ryanair still won't stop trying to flog you things, even though it's 4 in the morning.
No one wants to buy your perfume, even if it's on special offer, or a scratch card.
At the best of times, certainly not then.
Jeez. Do you know, it just reminds me, many years ago in Peru, on what I call the Diablo bus, an overnight bus travelling between miles. I mean, I was much younger, backpacking around with a crowd of people, and a band got on playing the Peruvian music, and it's 3 in the morning, and they're playing the music, and I said, anyone here speak Spanish? Okay, can you translate? How much money are you hoping to get in tips? Right, I'll pay double that for you to get off the bus. whatever it was, like $2 they were going to make. Right, here's 4. Please, for the love of God, stop playing and get off the bus so we can all go back to sleep. There we are. They made money. They were happy. They were perfectly happy to get off. Anyway, right, let's talk about stuff that actually matters rather than your and my moaning about transport. The Equality Act the Kemi Badenoch says she is going to try and get changed. I mean, this is really basic stuff, isn't it? This is basically rewriting the Equality Act, which referred to sex. And you have sex-based rights. So women, have protected because, there was sexual discrimination against women. It used to be okay to not give a job, but you had to be a nurse, not a doctor. You weren't allowed to do certain jobs because you were a woman. You get slapped on the backside. Well, that's fine. Of course, that's what behaves like. We had the Sex Discrimination Act. Then we had the Equality Act about women being equal in the workplace and in other areas of life. But it also provided us with some safe places. Not because we're all pathetic and whingy and moaning and hopeless, but because women are physically, on average, much weaker than men, and so forth. We can face sexual and violent and physical violence. So we have women's toilets, women's changing rooms, women's refuges, women's hospital wards, women's prisons. It goes along and also women-only sports. So we've got a chance of winning something occasionally, as opposed to always being an also-ran, because men are bigger and stronger than us. And yet this has been completely changed in recent years, where we've got men saying they identify as being a trans woman, and then basically getting a certificate saying they are a woman, being able to enter all those spaces, putting women at risk. And I'm sorry, they are putting women at risk, predatory men using those certificates and the like. It's a no-brainer, this. But why haven't they done it before now?
Yeah, let's be clear why women need safe spaces. It's not because women are uncomfortable at the mess that us boys make.
Although we are.
Although you are, and we do make a mess, and I can only apologise on behalf of us. It is because there is a certain subset of men that are predators. It's a very small subset. There are certain subsets of men that are creeps, and there are certain subset of men that, you couldn't have, for example, a unisex changing room because everybody would be uncomfortable at people looking at one another.
And the thing is, it's very difficult for women to know which man is the bad man out of the 99 who aren't.
Exactly. But what we've done is we've come up with a system in which some of the strangest, most bizarre, frankly, most dangerous people possible are able to subvert this system. Rapists, convicted rapists going into prison suddenly say, no, despite my meat and two veg, I am in fact a woman.
Look, I've got a wig on.
And I would like to be placed in my prison sentence, having been convicted of rape, next to a, nice set of young women in there for their first stretch. What could possibly go wrong? And here's the thing, we don't even require the certificate anymore in many places.
Just have to say it. And this is what's happened in Scotland. Of course, that was part of the row that led to Nicola Sturgeon's departure from office. I mean, then we discovered other issues as well. But also, this is still happening. There are men, I'm not going to say biological men, they're men. You don't have to say biological, that's what a man means. There are men currently right now in women's prisons in England.
Every single one of those, in my view, I might get some heat for this, is a danger to women.
100% they are.
If you are a biological male, if you are a convicted criminal, right? You are a particularly devious, dangerous type. I don't want you anywhere near them.
Yeah.
And this is before we go into sports. But as you say, 14 years, just after the Parliament is dissolved, we can't legislate anymore.
Oh, what a shame. No,
we're going to
that's
change
my big
it.
issue. We're going to talk to Helen Joyce about this, who's been an amazing advocate on this. And again, this is not anti-trans. Most genuine people they genuinely believe that they have been born in the wrong body. I don't think anyone is born in the wrong body. You're male or female, that's it. But I have no issue with someone wanting to change their name, live their life, wear whatever they want, have whatever surgery. But that doesn't mean you accrue the rights of being a woman. You just don't. Because you're not actually a woman. It's that simple. And I think most trans people actually completely understand that and accept and used to accept it. And because it is actually the predatory men, the rapists, who have actually the perverts, who have used this legislation. Who could have foreseen that to do this? Look, let's talk about other stuff though. But don't want to hear from you. I really do want to hear from you. Do get in touch on anything that we're talking about. I really want to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Donald Trump, hear your thoughts on this issue, on where we are. We can talk about defence in a moment and Labour's immigration policy. What do you think Nigel Farage is going to say at 4 o'clock? This emergency announcement. I mean, again, Reform UK do have bad form of actually just saying there's going to be a big announcement and then it's something quite bland. So, let's not get our hopes up too high, but it's something that is newsworthy. But, do get in touch, Nigel Farage, anytime, let us know. But let's talk about this rewriting the Equality Act. I want to know what your reaction is to what Sam and I have just been talking about. Is it, are you disappointed it's taken so long? Do you think it's wrong for the Tories to vow to give this pledge? What do you think that Labour will do if, as the polls suggest, they get into office? Do get in touch. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Send a WhatsApp to the same number. Text on 87222, tweet on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate. Message. The other bits are all free. Anyway, let's talk about Labour and immigration policy. As we just touched on with a few other guests as well. The Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has said that Labour do also want to cut immigration, but they refuse to say by how much and by when. They've been mocked by the Tories for this, but she said she wanted to cut immigration significantly. What do you think that means?
I have a prediction here. I'm going to call it now. I suspect it will be proven right in about 3 years' time. I suspect they're going to change who counts as an immigrant, and they're going to claim the technical trickery of that. There's long been this debate about whether or not we include students who, by the way, get to stay for 2 years after their course, work in whatever field they like.
This argument is that these people aren't coming here to live permanently, but if you're here basically for 5 years, that's quite permanent. I mean, you have to have somewhere to live. You're not just bunking down on someone's sofa for 5 years.
Yeah, and by the way, if just as many of them were leaving as just as many were coming, they wouldn't be contributing towards the net migration numbers, yet strangely they are, to the tune of hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
I suspect some of Labour's first acts will be to fiddle the numbers, to lie to the British public about who is and isn't coming to this country.
Haven't the Tories been doing that for a long time as well?
The
I mean, we were told again and again, net immigration down to the tens of thousands, and it was, I've lost track of what it was last time.
675,000.
Yeah.
The entire British political class have taken the public for a ride. They have derided as anyone who questions these figures as conspiracists.
Bigots.
They have called people racist. They have told everyone that this isn't an acceptable topic for conversation, saying you'll crash the economy. And all the while, people's living standards, actual GDP per capita, have been consistently going down, while the asset-owning city banking classes have done better
cheap
and
labour.
better.
And it is absolutely fascinating. We need to bring in people to do jobs. We have got millions of people who are working age here in this country who are not working. I'm sorry. Let's train up our own people. And again, as I've always said, lots of the jobs that people are being brought in to do are not highly skilled jobs. They're very important jobs like social care, but they're not jobs that someone can't, frankly, learn to do. Yes, you could be a great carer. I've seen amazing carers. It's an amazing and very difficult job, and it should be better paid. It really should. But, these aren't jobs that someone needs to go to uni for 3 years for, or train as a doctor to do. And we bring in these people, and we've got plenty of people who should be doing that work. And frankly, when they are hungry enough because they ain't got any money, they would do those jobs.
Yeah, and we're importing people now to look after those that we imported to look after things there. Right, at some point this Ponzi scheme has to end. We have imported to the tune of 10 million people over the past 20 years.
So exactly, the numbers are off the scale.
How many is the right number?
Given that immigration is absolutely crucial to our economic prosperity, and for 20 years we've brought in so many people, and 10 million in total at that time as a result, it added to our population. By the way, that's the ones we know about. They reckon there's some 1.5 million at least, who were somewhere just in this, living in the country. I mean, you'd think that we've been zooming away on our economy, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Paltry growth, nothing happening, nothing growing. And what does the Bank of England, the OBR, the Treasury do? Route one, if in doubt, press import another 100,000.
Well, let's talk about another major issue that's today. Well, it's what Labour would like to push today anyway, and that's defence. Keir Starmer has failed to set a deadline on his pledge to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP. The Tories have said they promised to hit that number by 2030 if they win a general election. Again, I would say too little, too late. Keir said this morning that Labour is absolutely committed to the target. He also did this triple lock on nuclear weapons. Again, I mean, that's something that will upset a lot on the Labour left, but, you know, it's just kind of a given now in our defence. But in his speech, he said Britain will be fit to fight under a Labour government. The reality is we're not going to be fit to fight under any government, are we?
Well, exactly so. We may have a new nuclear fleet by 2040. We heard earlier this year that, oh dear, the current missiles can't exactly be relied on to fire when they're sent. We saw the case where there was a failed launch with the Defence Secretary himself on the boat at the time. And we're in a situation in which the armed forces have been left parlously unprepared for a more dangerous world. And Labour's got some big choices here, because the only way you're going to turn that around is by spending more money.
And it is huge sums as well.
And if you want to increase defence spending from 2%, where it is, to 2.5% or even 3%.
By the way, it should be 4%.
Which is exactly where Labour is saying we go. Something's got to give, right? Labour,
and they're going to go, if they win, they're going to go into office with there is no money now, and there will be no money then. I mean, that's the reality. I think there's a lot of people, there's a lot of promises being made by every party right now. Well, I just mentioned the Liberal Democrat spokesperson on this. They said, in a world endangered by Putin and other global threats, Lib Dems are committed to maintaining our nuclear deterrent, renewing Trident in full with 4 submarines and continuous patrols to keep Britain and our allies safe. I don't think we've got all our submarines out at the moment, have we? From mouldy military housing to troop cuts, leaving us with the smallest army since the Napoleonic era, the Conservative Party's record on defence is appalling. And, I mean, it is pretty poor, is it not?
Well, that's right. I mean, fascinating there. The Lib Dems, of course, had a long-term anti-nuclear policy for a very long time. All 3 parties have, in recent years, moved to a position of hawkishness on defence, where there is an acknowledgement that that old post-war era, where the end of history, where actually, convert your tanks into ploughshares, we don't need them now, or convert your tanks, maybe, or your generals into diversity officers. That time is over, and the next decade is perhaps the most dangerous we have faced.
We are
since the
pre-war,
1980s.
not post-war. I mean, it amazes me that these so-called experts, the people in charge of all these things, are so late to this party, but there we are. Let's just talk briefly also about Nigel Farage. We're going to talk to Richard Tice in about 20 minutes' time, who's the leader of the Reform UK Party. Nigel Farage, of course, still the big name, and he's our honorary president. He said a week ago he was stepping down from broadcasting, he was going to campaign for the party, and he's been out and about campaigning. He said, though, he would not run for a seat because he wants to go and work, on the American Trump campaign for the American elections later in the year. But he has said they want to take over the Tory party post-election. He says he's going to make an announcement at 4 o'clock today. Do you think he may be talking about perhaps running for a seat himself? Or do you think, as Annunziata Rees-Mogg suggested earlier, that actually it might be about there will be, not a deal with the Tories, but there will actually be a view that if a Tory promises, the Tory MPs who basically agree with Reform UK, they won't run candidates against them?
Well, it will be very interesting if it is the latter, perhaps even more interesting than if it is the former. Conservative candidates will be put under extreme pressure by the central office there not to agree to this kind of deal, which will completely flip the power.
It's not a deal, is it? So
what is the test he's going to use? Is it, did they vote against the Windsor framework? Is it, do they promise to vote against certain things in the future? And we risk going into an election, from a Conservative strategist point of view, with 2 Tory parties, right? Conservative candidates that have signed up to this Reform Pact, and Conservative candidates that haven't. It would be a bold move, but I think it would be a very, very telling, potentially dramatic intervention.
It's going to be very well. We'll wait and see what happens.